one story I can tell you is we just met with a large master broker, general agent, and over the last 8 years, when the PEOs have really become broker friendly, probably last 8 to 10 years, like you said, brokers have been moving clients onto the PEO platform, and now is a time that to really look at that book of business.
Welcome to Insurance Shoptalk. This is the podcast where the world of commercial insurance gets a little closer to home. I'm your host, Eric Stein, and in every episode, we're taking a deep dive into the insurance industry. From the latest news and trends to in-depth interviews with InsurTech experts, carriers, and agency newsmakers, we're covering it all. So sit back, tune in, and let's start the conversation. So today I've got Paul Aemisegeo. How'd I do on that one, Paul?
Amazing.
Awesome.
Perfect. You nailed it.
Tough last name with Payrollmart. And I brought Paul in because I think a lot of agents are looking for a way to work very closely with a client in terms of helping them transition over to a new payroll and HRIS system, but the agent does not want to be integrally involved with it. And they need someone who is not a competitor like an ADP or a Paychex, which are some of the largest sellers of insurance in the country, to be on board with them. And they probably actually wouldn't work that closely with the agent unless they're just doing a ton of business with ADP or Paychex. But anyway, I feel like Paul's company could really help us in regards to having that conversation and introduction and not just throwing the client out, especially a larger client, to the wolves, and especially the wolf of ADP or Paychex. Why let them go to a potential competitor if we can help it? So Paul can help make a good fit for them and really take on the whole model of assisting the client. So Paul, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to kind of talk a little bit about your background and Payrollmart, and give a quick overview of how you integrate and work with brokers and agents.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, you nailed it. My background, I interviewed with ADP way back when, many, many, many years ago, right out of college, and they never hired me. I interviewed for 7 hours over the course of 3 days, kept asking me back, thought I had the job locked up. They told me I was too entrepreneurial, I wasn't a good fit, and I was probably pretty much the only one that could walk and talk that was not hired, sort of in that wave of interviewers.
Too
So
entrepreneurial. That's
yeah,
crazy.
too entrepreneurial. So I went ahead and I joined a wholesaler, employee benefits general agent, and that gave me amazing training. They were a startup, so we worked with thousands of brokers, mainly in the New York metro area, but across the country. Serving their clients, right, small to mid-sized employers on the medical, dental, life, health, all ancillary lines. We didn't do any P&C or workers' comp, really. We stayed away from that side. So what I learned was that payroll controlled all the information that my broker needed and that we needed when we were doing an implementation, right? When we were moving a group, setting up a new group with a new insurance carrier, we were quoting, building an RFP. So sort of 10 years into my career there, I built a pretty nice book of business, and I decided to keep on doing what I was doing, but also start a payroll company. I wanted to learn anything and everything there was about payroll. And this was at the time when PEOs were really coming into the New York, New Jersey marketplace. And also at the time, just before community rated law was passed in New York State, determining what's a large group and a small group, right? So PEOs were not broker friendly at the time. They had direct sales forces, and they were taking business away from brokers. So I started the payroll company with the mission to align with our brokers and go out after those clients that might have been outgrowing the PEO, that might have been paying exorbitant admin fees, upwards of a couple $100 a month with, I think it was Ambrose. TriNet had acquired a PEO piece of business, book of business. I think it was Ambrose, something like that. And they focused on high end, high demographic private equity and hedge funds that were willing to pay these really high admin fees. So we went in and we started unbundling these PEOs. And the first thing that I learned was how significant workers' comp was in that process, right? And EPLI, and how, when we were doing an RFP and shopping out the medical, we needed to have a workers' comp side as well. Like we had to partner with a workers' comp broker or a wholesaler. And along the lines of doing these over and over again, I developed a checklist and a system and a blueprint for whether it be a P&C broker going in and discovering that the client wants to come out of a PEO, or whether it's a health insurance broker that wants to take the client out of a PEO. I've systematized this process and checklist and make it easier for the client and the stakeholders involved for an easy transition.
That makes sense. So, but backing up, like the way you're structured now, you have basically different platforms based on the client need for payroll. You're not just locked into your, one system like a traditional payroll sales representative. You're more of a broker, but then again, very specialized with just a few. When you kind of touch on that, because I like that model that you're not just locked in.
Correct, 100%. So after 20 years of doing the GA master broker stuff and running the payroll company, I got bought out of the book of business on the GA side. I sold the payroll company and I started Payrollmart. So Payrollmart hatched out of both of those models. And like you said, what I developed was wholesale arrangements with multiple payroll providers and HCM providers. So we'll come in vendor agnostic.
And HCM being human
capital management. Yeah,
right. Which
exactly.
is more HR related services for employees.
Yeah, you'll hear HCM referred to sort of the employee life cycle. So from hire to fire, from hire to retire, that all the life cycle, the life cycle of when an employee is onboarded, added to payroll, and then the different modules of human capital management. That's sort of in the last probably 10 years, you've heard a lot about people talking about HCM. So that's how Payrollmart was kind of hatched out of those two backgrounds, right? Those two prior businesses. And I've always served brokers and I've always served their clients. So, and that's what the mission of Payrollmart is. We're just serving them slightly different from the payroll perspective, finding the right technology for them, implementing that technology, migrating all of their historical information, making sure that the implementation goes smoothly. And then we stay on board actually for day-to-day support. Right now in the payroll space, it's one of the last sort of industries where you still have to buy payroll from a direct sales rep, right? If you look at any other industry, you can deal with a third party or a broker or an agent to kind of get what you want. And in the payroll space, you still had to go through a direct sales rep. So if you wanted to look at 4 different platforms, you have to deal and invite 4 different new sales reps into your life, which I thought is kind of annoying. And with Payrollmart, you just have to invite your broker and Payrollmart into the picture, and we present and vet and implement the best fit for the client.
Right, because I guess it matters about how small or big the client is, that they have benefits, the work comp piece, is that integrated in?
Correct.
What type of HR they're used to, Are they using another platform for that, or is it already integrated? So you
Are
get
they
to
coming
ask
out of
all
are
those,
they coming out of a PEO?
right?
Yeah,
You get to ask all these questions and then come back with the right proposal based on what their needs are and right system, if you will, for payroll.
correct.
And you do it all, which is again the big thing for us as agents. We don't want to implement the payroll piece.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we want to run from that conversation. That's what we've all been doing. So you're able, we can just again turn that over to you and pass the ball, and you can do your due diligence and help them versus letting them go out on their own and having 4 or 5 presentations if they do that.
100%. Yeah, we're not the relationship opening up the discussion type of, like, that's not my personality. That's not what I've you know sought out to do. I'm more of the technical, tactical, getting stuff done, getting stuff implemented. So that's why I work so well with all of our broker partners, because I know, I mean, I've literally done thousands of groups with brokers, and I know how they're wired, right? They don't want to get involved. They want to keep it high level. They want to stick to what they can do, but they want to make sure that whoever they're bringing in is going to take care of their client and care about their client as much as they care about it. Because if we don't do a good job, or the broker doesn't do a good job, no one's getting paid, right? And we want to keep clients on the books, and we want to make sure that we minimize and mitigate the burden as much as possible.
That makes sense. So like when you bring on a client, for instance, let's say you do your presentation with the agent there, you find the right fit, they like the fit, they like the price, you start implementation. Is your team handling that implementation, or are you passing that over to the payroll firm?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the way we do it is different than pretty much anyone else in the industry, and there's not a lot of people that do what we do.
Right. I've
Anyway,
never run
yeah,
into,
yeah,
yeah, a broker.
exactly.
I've been doing
So,
this a while.
but our implementation is completely different than how ADP runs their implementations, how Paylocity runs their implementations. If a client was to go to them directly, the experience is completely different. And this is how it works: is the broker and myself or someone on my team will have the fact finder with the client, go through discovery, just understand the pain point, right? Then we set up some demos. They get to see the technology. Then we actually run the proposals. They don't even talk to the sales rep, which is great, right? Like, if the client doesn't, unless they have questions, unless they have specific questions that we didn't answer during fact finder or during the demo with the sales rep. But at this point, the sales rep that are involved with us from ADP or Paylocity or whoever the vendor is, they're not allowed to talk to our client or the broker's client directly unless we're involved. So we're buffering the client, which is huge. They don't have 4 different sales reps bothering them. Then at the point the client says, you know what, I want to move forward with this provider. What we do at that point is we go in and we pull as much information as possible from their existing payroll provider or PEO, right? We format it. Simultaneously, we let the payroll company know that the client's coming on board. It's very similar to the insurance world. This is what we do with the insurance world, right? Like, the insurance carrier doesn't even know that a piece of business is coming in unless you told them that the RFP or the quote has sold, right? Like,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, the insurance sales rep in-house has a bunch of quotes, and he's going through all his quotes, and he's asking the broker which one's selling, which one's selling. They don't even know, because they don't even have a lot of direct contact with the client, if any. So we replicate that in the payroll world. I'll go to the payroll sales rep and I'll say, hey, this one's selling. Our team has already pulled all the information from the prior vendor. All I need you to do is get your contracts together. This is the legal name. This is the federal tax ID number. This is all the states that they have employees in. This is all of their state tax IDs that you need. They prepare all the contracts. send it to us. The client signs the contract, and then they sign a service agreement with us simultaneously. And the contract plus our service agreement doesn't cost the client more than if they were going direct. It actually, sometimes it costs less.
Great.
So the client's like, this is great. I haven't done anything in terms of any heavy lifting yet. I haven't been asked to complete any spreadsheets or pull any information together because Paul and his team has prepared everything. Then at that point, a week to 10 days goes by. We prepare all the import templates and we have a kickoff call. My team has a kickoff call with ADP or Paylocity or whoever, right? And the client's not on that call. So the next following week, when the client is on the call with the payroll company, the system is already built. The shell is already built, and ideally the employees are already imported, and the client simply is going through a checklist with us of what has been done and then what outstanding questions we have for them in terms of maybe the nuances of their business, their payroll do they have multiple payroll frequencies? So we sort of like what typically happens in the industry is the payroll sales rep sells it. A week goes by, an implementation person is assigned. A week goes by, the implementation person gets on the call with the client and says, okay, I need these 50 things done from you. You need
They
to
got to
send,
do it.
yeah, they got to do it. And then 3 weeks have already expired and nothing's been done. So
I've seen that before. And then, okay, so now they're coming on. Now, are you not processing the payroll for the client, or does that go into a payroll technician at that point at the provider, or how does that work? PNC agents, have you run into Byberg, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company quoting workers' comp for either your prospects or clients? Well, great news. Insured Solutions, a national MGA, has an appointment that is set up to allow you to quote, bind, and service Byberg at your agency. And the coverage is in all states. It's A-rated. Startups are even accepted. There's $125,000 maximum premium. And some of the tough industries they write are construction, transportation, that includes towing and parcel delivery, manufacturing, security guards that are armed and unarmed, motor mediation, and many more. So go to our website at insuredsolutions.net, click the Get Appointed link. We'll get you logins for you and your team, and can set up a webinar for training if you'd like. Also, feel free to email info@insuredsolutions.net, and I can handle the submission myself, or call 770-402-5343. Be glad to speak to you and give you more detail. Thanks.
it depends on, so my team is the first line of defense, exactly like insurance. So I always when I talk to a new broker, I always ask, do you ever want your client being on the phone or on hold with the insurance carrier? And the broker's like, no way, because they're going to mess it up. The carrier is going to mess something up. So we do the same thing. We're the first line of defense. We help submit payroll. We run payroll. If the client has any questions or problems, we answer that. If we can't answer that, we go to our service team at the payroll company, and we funnel the information back to the client. 99% of the time, the client never has to talk to the payroll company. Same as in the insurance world. Once the client's up and going and trained on the system, depends on the sophistication of the client, but if they've been on multiple payroll systems and they know they have experience on the system, service is minimal. But if it's a less sophisticated client, if they have a lot of hourly employees, if we're facilitating the pay-go sort of workers' comp files, or we're facilitating the 401k integration and or uploading 401k reports, then we're involved at a higher level every time they run payroll.
Makes sense. Yeah. So much of it would be automated, but you guys would be on the front line and then handle it from there. And then, while we're on the subject of that workers' comp, so how deep do you go with that pay-as-you-go billing aspect? 'Cause I know, we're finally seeing quite a number of carriers now offering the pay-as-you-go billing for the client, so it's billed as earned and, in surprise audit. So how does that integrate with what you do normally? And how do you guys pay the premium to the carrier, or the client does it? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's one of it's one of our first questions that we ask in our discovery, because if they're coming out of a PEO, if they're considering a PEO, depending on the sophistication of the broker, what type of broker they are. If they're only like a health insurance type broker, then the health insurance broker is only looking at sort of their silo. But another pain point for the client may be, hey, like they're dealing with they have a lot of turnover, and they're dealing with this workers' comp audit at the end of the year, and it's a pain in the butt, right, for them. So if we can add that, if this broker can help solve a problem for them, or make their P&C broker or get their P&C broker in there, right, to who's well versed on pay as you go and can get us a pay go quote from Hartford or whoever, then I leave that up to them. But I plant the seed and say, hey, you may want to. I heard a lot of pain associated around the workers' comp audit on the discovery call. You better make sure that you get a pay go quote. Once you get that, just let us know. We need all the class codes. We'll build those class codes out on the new payroll system, and we'll make sure that the workers' comp report is being generated correctly, and that can be sent over electronically. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's how we get into it pretty deeply in terms of executing and making sure it gets done, not necessarily in selling it. We don't get paid.
Right. The broker would
Yeah,
handle that
yeah,
part. The P&C
yeah,
broker would handle the work comp. Try if they can. Hopefully, that carrier offers a pay-as-you-go billing. If they
yep,
do, they can tee it up to you as part
correct.
of that conversion. You'll make sure to set it up by class code and all the employees and everything, so it's billed accurately with the net rate. And
Yep.
then I guess the next question. So I got that part, and pull reports for audits and make it seamless there. Can you take it to the next step and actually get the premium paid to the carrier too, or is that typically left to the client?
So yeah, it's typically between the client and from my experience, once they're set up on the pay go and the report is remitted electronically, then that's the trigger for the insurance company to come in and swipe the client's account.
Right. Okay. So you'll handle
Yeah,
that integration with the
yeah,
carrier and getting that file over,
yeah,
so it's seamless to the customer, hopefully.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then in terms of the audit side, like you had mentioned on workers' comp, at the end of the year, into the policy period, what are you typically doing in that area to help the agent with the audit and the client to simplify that part?
Yeah,
Especially if they're not on pay as you go too.
yeah. So we'll pull all the 941s. So all of the quarterly federal and state quarterly reports from the payroll system, and we'll upload that. We'll email it to the client, or we'll upload it directly to the client's portal within the insurance carrier if we have access. Because there's some like Hartford, we have some logins, so we can upload directly on behalf of the client.
And then, of course, provide the actual reporting for the period of the
Of the
policy,
policy, correct.
class code and all that good stuff. No, that's
Correct.
awesome. And then I know that we'll staying kind of on the P&C side a little more. So let's say that we were talking earlier about because we sell PEO services at Insurance Solutions, so we're more pro PEO. But
Yeah.
there are many times where the client is, like, as you said, I think, has either outgrown the PEO, either from a size perspective now, they could do it, more efficiently and effectively on their own in-house. Because I would say once you get over, I don't know, 100 employees, it starts to get potentially, based on industry, gets marginal. Secondly, the PEO could have really done their job, of helping that client understand risk management, safety,
Yep.
hiring practices.
Yeah, getting their comp, yeah, getting that whole foundation in place. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Especially if it's
it
hard risk
becomes
or they had some bad years, claims. Yeah,
yeah, and
I
now
agree.
the PEOs kind of train them how the client how to fish, and now
Yep.
their mods are lower, their costs are lower, they're more attractive in the marketplace, and it's
Yep.
better for them to go out of the market. But as agents, and even though I sell PEO, I forget this, what a hassle it is to kind of come out of a PEO or exit a PEO.
Yeah.
So you have like a PEO exit service, so go into that. That's a pretty cool spin on your model, I think, of what you do.
Yeah. And literally what you just said is the most important part is understanding the history of maybe they might from a workers' comp perspective, especially if they're like gray, blue collar, right?
Oh yeah, which is what the PNC guys, what we like,
Yeah.
more premium
Like maybe
than.
they had some a rocky sort of history, not so good, but the PEO has sort of got them in line, got their mod down, got their claims in check. Now that has to be one of the first discovery questions when we're looking to exit. Assuming, let's assume that a PNC broker is working with us, then I know they have it under control, right? Like you guys have that in check. But if a health insurance broker brings me in to a deal, brings us into a deal, I have to assume that they haven't really asked a lot of questions about the workers' comp and they don't really understand, or where's the client going to land when they're coming out, right? So my point is that's one of the because that could be a deal breaker. Like the health insurance broker could have the best health insurance rates on the street, could save them a lot of money, but on the comp side, they're not a good fit to come out, right? So assume we address that right away. Then what we go to is say, okay, understand where all the employees are located. What states are they located? If they have employees located in the state of Washington, that's a it's a pain. It's a pain from a workers' comp perspective and a state tax ID perspective. Uh, so just understanding where their employees are located, itemizing and taking inventory of what state tax IDs they have registered already in their own legal name versus what the PEO is handled. Because if they have employees in self-reporting states, the PEO has to report on the client's tax ID number in those certain states. So the client has to
Right,
make,
so yes, they come out, you got to clean that up. You got
yeah,
to make
yeah,
sure you got
correct.
the new tax ID number. So that's one, the payroll situation.
Yep,
How is that being handled if it's multi-state especially?
yep.
And what can you do to jump in and make sure nothing gets, unchecked there?
Paid time off. So if they have employees in multiple states, if they have employees in California, the paid time off rules are are very different in California than other states, right? New York has mandatory paid family leave. So depending on where their employees are located, when we come out, we have to make sure that we have short-term DBL coverage in the state of New York, DBL coverage and paid family leave in New York and New Jersey and California, all those sort of kind of highly compliant states that have Colorado has paid family leave now as well. All of that stuff is handled by the PEO when they're under that PEO's umbrella. When you come out, you got to kind of identify and you identify that based on the census, based on where all the employees are located, and you fill in those gaps.
No, that makes sense. And then maybe they're using, again, HRIS, human capital management software and systems. So from the PEO. So you got to make sure to match up to that during the discovery call, right?
Correct. The PEOs do an awesome job of delivering and making it easy. So delivering information, enrollment, uh,
Online enrollments.
online enrollment in a paperless environment. a lot of employers, when they come out, also the billing reconciliation. When you're on a PEO, the PEO comes in and grabs all the money from the client's bank account, right? And then that money is employees' pay, it's taxes, it's premium for health insurance, it's service fees. It's all sort of being, kind of pulled out on a lump sum basis. And the PEO behind the scenes reconciles it and pays the health insurance, pays the ancillary lines or AFLAC or Colonial. That whole billing reconciliation is handled by the PEO. If you have someone who's like within the organization employer that's not that sophisticated and has never run or operated sort of non-PEO before, and now they come out and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to pay this health insurance provider. I got to pay the dental provider. I have to pay the ancillary lines. I got to pay AFLAC. Now they're staring at 4, 6, 8 different invoices.
I know you can't just pay the invoice because you've had new hires,
You got
termination.
new hires,
You got to
terminations.
pull people on and off the bill, like in the P&C world, the auto, how that changes. You
Yep.
can't just pay the bill. You got to review it and reconcile it, like you mentioned. So you and your system can handle that, right, for the client.
Yeah. That's where we step in and help out. Correct.
So yeah, we all forget that when you pull them out of PEO, especially a larger client, and they may have, like you said, started small and now they're bigger. So they've never been outside of the PEO model. So we've got to come in and really, be a consultant, I think, and bring someone like you in, not do the work, but have someone there to come in and scoop it up that understands what the big a loss is. The other piece is that, and I know we mentioned this earlier as well, is knowing when that client is ready to come out of the PEO. If you miss that, if they're getting upset and another broker comes in and starts talking about pulling them out of the PEO and how much more money they're paying, and if the agent happened to be the one to put them with the PEO, which is in the case of many of our cases,
Yep.
we're offering that service to the agent, and they've outgrown it for whatever reason, and the agent misses that opportunity, they could lose the account. So they better
Yeah.
come in and not only say, okay, I hear your pain, now it's time for you to come out, but I need, they bring Payrollmart in to really facilitate it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, uh, the we one story I can tell you is we just met with a large master broker, general agent, and over the last 8 years, when the PEOs have really become broker friendly, probably last 8 to 10 years, like you said, brokers have been moving clients onto the PEO platform, and now is a time that to really look at that book of business and say, okay, out of these 1,000 groups, how many are ready and or willing or able to take advantage of coming out of the PEO, off the PEO, operate on their own, probably save a significant amount of money from a administrative fee perspective, and we can probably be pretty successful replicating with technology and benefit platform and workers comp, then we could probably replicate what they had in the PEO and drop a significant amount of savings to the bottom line for them, uh, and fill in the administrative burden for them. So if a lot of the brokers are getting savvy now and they're trying to cherry pick those accounts that are ready to come out, and the broker's going to get blindsided and lose the business.
Oh, that makes sense. And then I know we don't normally talk a lot about this in our P&C world, but I think you mentioned you had to have a new HRIS system that connects, basically it's agnostic. It could be connect with any payroll platform or most of them. You want to talk a little bit about what that does for the client and how that conversation could go to someone to bring it up if you're an agent and not really in that HR or HRIS world, how does that work?
Yeah, so we have a system, it's called Shuttle HR, and it's in beta right now. We have a bunch of groups running on it, and sort of proving out the model. It's working really amazing. We're able to connect with an invite to multiple payroll systems. So let's say a client is on ADP and they want to move to Paylocity, and they've been on ADP for 7, 8, 10 years. That that information, that historical information on ADP, Paylocity doesn't want all of that information coming into their system. So we can connect to ADP, we can back up that information for the client, create a repository, and also run, like, it's almost like in the payroll world, it's called running in parallel. So when you're getting the other system ready to, start, you still have to enter and run the existing system. So we can run side by side and create a backup for the client. So that's use case number one. Use case number two is clients that have voluntary lines. So I don't want to say the carrier, but there's one particular carrier that it's very difficult to reconcile their invoices. So if we connect Shuttle to the payroll system, we can pull information real time, and we can instantly reconcile their voluntary insurance invoice. Because a lot of times it's self-billing or it's a PDF, and you're marking up the PDF, like you said earlier in the conversation, who's out on leave, who's been terminated, who's a new hire, and you're trying to track these deductions coming out of the employee's pay for cancer or accident plans. By connecting Shuttle to the system, we can do that instantaneously.
Awesome. And I'm assuming you could do it with healthcare invoices and all of that too.
Yeah. Exactly. Because we're pulling real payroll data, and whatever deductions are showing up, whether it's health, medical, dental, cancer, we can see it, and then our system will organize it and create real-time reconciliation.
Makes sense. So you've got a Venn Recon tool and within it, and you've got a repository for the old history.
Yeah, correct.
Historical data, so that the client can easily run reports off of it, because once they leave ADP, they're done.
Yeah.
I guess they could get it in an Excel file, but that's hard to deal with.
Or you can pay the payroll companies to keep that active. But if you've changed multiple payroll companies, like, a lot of clients go from ADP to Paychex to, there might be 2 or 3, 4 payroll companies in. So that data eventually gets lost. And you have to back it up depending on whether it's the IRS or DOL, unemployment, overtime, right? If there's any overtime lawsuits, the type of information has to be backed up anywhere from 1 year to 7 years.
Oh, that makes total sense. No, I like the approach there, because again, if anything you can do to help a client, that's again part of going back from that transition. Now in that scenario, it's transitioning from another payroll system and not necessarily a PEO. You can make sure to cover their needs. And then a lot of clients, I know we mentioned the ADP is a bad word in the very beginning of the conversation, but unfortunately, they are the big gorilla. So if a client is already with ADP and is happy with ADP, they want to stay with it, because you get that a lot, and especially trying to present a PEO option, it's sometimes hard to pull it. They've already learned the system, so to speak. How do you deal with that, and in that you can offer that ADP model too? What do you like to do there when the client wants to stay with it? How do you integrate with that?
So there's a few scenarios that we've worked in. So where we've worked with brokers and the client's already on ADP Total Source, but they like ADP brand and they like the system, we can pull them out of ADP Total Source.
Total Source being the PEO model.
Yeah. Yep, we can pull them out of the ADP total source and handle their migration and work with the ADP team and set them up on ADP Workforce Now. And if it's a broker referred client who's also working with us, we can make sure that client is protected, so to speak, from other solicitation, right? So it should be tagged as a broker referred client.
Ooh, nice. Okay, so there's
Yes.
the
So
protection right there.
Yeah, ADP has a partner access program that any broker that we work with, and it's not just us, like ADP is active promoting this. There's one division where we want to make sure that all of our brokers' clients are set up on partner access. So the broker has access to it, we have access to it, and there's no one else within ADP should be cross soliciting, trying to take over that book of business, take
Right,
over
and sell the
that business.
insurance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And now, what if they're not coming out of the PEO, but they're with ADP? Is there anything you can do there? Or they're already with ADP? You can't. You got to move them to another vendor.
if they're already with ADP, then it's more of a managed payroll support. We have a lot of clients like this actually, where they hire us separately. So it would cost them more money. They would hire us as an added outsourced payroll support. So it's hourly or it's a monthly retainer. And believe it or not, we have a lot of clients like that because their in-house payroll person may be juggling a lot of balls, and they might be more of an HR person where they just want a specific payroll person to run the day to day and
It's almost like you're an
handle.
extension of that
Yeah,
client's
yep,
office or
correct,
payroll department and handle that piece for them. They can just communicate with you. But you
correct.
probably do a lot more, I would assume, in terms of grabbing data from timekeeping and all that good stuff and
Exactly.
pushing live.
Preparing the payroll, yeah, bringing time in, getting everything set so then their in-house person can just review it quick, say it looks great, boom, submit.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah, perfect example. One of our clients, 500 employees, they went from one PEO to another PEO. We still were not involved. Once they came out of the last PEO, they went to UKG directly. When they went to UKG, they had a lot of issues from a state tax ID perspective, right? A lot of notices. That's when they brought us in. And we cleaned up all their notices. They had, I don't know, 500 notices,
Mhm.
like insane. And we cleaned up those, and then they hired us as a managed payroll support to just stay on board and troubleshoot, so none of this get out of control because they're hiring employees in every state, making sure that they're compliant in the state, registered correctly, etc.
Got it. No, that makes sense. Um, No, this has been great. I think, again, you've got a unique model in the way that you operate, again, versus a traditional payroll sales rep representing one product. You're the broker in the middle of payroll, like you said. And I think that knowing that we could just turn this thing over to you to handle and not have to be in the middle of that, which we don't have the time for. We're after, we want to sell insurance and
Yep.
handle that part of it. It makes it really enticing. And for agents who might want to get in touch with you, Paul, to go learn a little bit more about what you do and kind of get going on referring clients, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Email me, paul@payrollmart.com.
Yeah, you don't make them spell your last name. That's good.
Just Paul, or look me up on LinkedIn. Message me on LinkedIn, connect with me, or they can reach out to you. And yeah, I'm pretty easy to get in touch with.
Yeah, and then just for my info quickly, if there's someone's listening, it's 770-402-5343 or info@insuredsolutions.net. It gets right to me as well. And yeah, so anyone that would like to meet Paul through us, no problem. I'll make the intro or directly feel free to reach out to Paul. It's a great guy. And I think he can help all of us, not miss some opportunities and not have balls drop with that client, especially coming out of PEOs, and then be respectful of what we're trying to do in terms of integrating with that client and not disrupting the insurance conversation, with someone, a random sales rep at a payroll company, that we, let that client out on their own, especially the larger clients. It's going to get nasty, it might turn into a knife fight by accident.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's why I started Payrollmart, because I think that's the opportunity to support brokers. They can plug me in or my team in when they need it, right? And then we keep our mouths shut when we're not needed.
No, it makes sense. And also, I have a shameless plug for myself. I just launched my new book. As many of you may know, I've shot emails out if you're on my list. The Blueprint talks a little bit about how I built insurance solutions as a founder, all the struggles that I went through, but also some of the cool successes with outsourcing in terms of nearshore, offshore, some of the marketing programs I set up to reach agents and help them with their clients, and build out high deductible programs in-house that we managed, and to help control the profit of the agency. And so it's a little bit about the first part discusses more about the beginnings and how I started things. And then the second half of the book, or part 2 of the book, centers more into helping agents and their agency and selling and operations and things like that. So it's on Amazon, and also on the Insurance Shoptalk website and LinkedIn. So, feel free to pick up a copy. I've got it on Kindle too, so make it easy and quick, also. But again, Paul, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we had you on, and looking forward to working with you myself as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again for tuning in to Insurance Shop Talk. If you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest trends, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, I'm Eric Stein, and this has been Insurance Shop Talk.